Hey everyone, it's Scott Branley. I know this isn't normal for me to just come on at the beginning of a podcast, but we added a special video at the end of this episode that shows some of the kids that Emily and her team are helping in Marcovia, Honduras. And it shows them saying what they want to be when they grow up. And it is definitely heartwarming and touches your heart. So make sure you stay to the end and watch that video. See you soon. Hey everyone, I'm Scott Branley.
And I'm Clarissa Branley. Every member has a story to share, one that can instill faith, invite growth, and inspire others.
On today's episode, we're going to hear how one woman is helping to give kids and families a better life in Honduras. Welcome to Latter-day Lights. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Latter-day Lights. We're super excited that you're here with us. We have a special treat for you today. We actually have Emily Hemmert back on the show. So Emily, thanks for being here again with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me back on.
Yeah, it's excited to have you. And also, we have another special treat. My daughter, you might recognize her. She was also on a previous episode. Her name is Clarissa. We're glad that she's here with us today too. So Clarissa's filling in for Alicia because Alicia is moving to Alaska, of all places. So her and her husband are house hunting this week. So yeah, we're excited to have you here with us too, Clarissa. Thanks for filling in.
Anytime.
So for those of you that watched Emily's first episode, it was not quite a year ago, but pretty close. Emily came on the show and she told us an amazing story. Actually, it's one of my favorite podcasts that we had. And basically, well, maybe why don't you just kind of give everyone kind of a quick recap of your story, Emily?
Yeah, so it's awesome to be back on here after a year just because a lot's happened in the last year. But actually, I want to turn the tables for a second because I want to hear how the last year's gone for you guys. So we kind of were both starting at the same time. I know a lot of things have happened. You guys have seen a lot of growth, so I'm going to turn the tables for a second.
Okay. All right. Yeah, so it's actually been a really fun adventure. Yeah, you were one of our first guests that were on the show. And, you know, a few months ago, we actually did our 20th episode. Now we're past 30, but
that's awesome.
It was really cool to go back. And when we did that 20th episode, we recapped every episode that we had done up to that point. And it was really cool just to see all the different people that we had met, all the different experiences they had, the stories that they shared. And it's been an awesome adventure. And it's also been really cool to just see how people have reacted to the stories over time. You know, the comments that we've got and the feedback that we've got. It's really rewarding to see that it's making a difference. And yeah, we're really excited just to see where the future goes. But we're more motivated than ever to continue to share stories. And that's one of the reasons that I'm excited to hear what your story's been like too, just to see, you know, because when we first met, you were just starting out with your adventure.
Yeah.
So yeah. So how's it been?
So just to give a little background for anyone who maybe isn't familiar with what we do small business loans in Honduras. And we also provide opportunities for people here to sponsor children to receive school uniforms and supplies. And these are kids who otherwise wouldn't be able to go to school just because of the requirements there that they have that kids wear uniforms and a certain type of shoes and those things. And just that simple thing impedes kids from going to school. So when we started, the last time we were on the podcast, I remember we talked about that we'd helped 11 kids. And I felt really good about those 11 kids. And this year, so they start school in February, we're sending 70 kids. And so
wow.
When we talked to the person we have running our nonprofit in Honduras about maybe trying to help some more kids, he said that he had a running list of all the kids who couldn't attend school. And so that's when it was brought to our attention that there were so many more kids that that could use help. And I recently read an article from the news that was talking about how there's 500,000 kids in Honduras who should be enrolled in school and who aren't. And so when I think of that number, it's really easy to feel a little overwhelmed, but I just have to focus on each kid and the difference that it's making for each of those kids. So it is a big problem to tackle, but we're tackling it one kid at a time. So
that's awesome. Well, and that reminds me of the starfish story, right? Throwing the starfishes back, it made a difference to that one, right? So that's amazing. 70 kids. Wow. What a cool.
Yeah, we actually.
That's awesome.
So we have 20 kids who are still unsponsored. And so and school starts next month. So that's kind of our big priority right now, is trying to get those last 20 kids sponsored. But we do have 50 of them have been sponsored. And so, and we plan to, we have the faith that it's going to work out to get all 70 there next month. So
awesome. Cool. So, what's that adventure been like? I guess I can turn it over to you and just have you kind of share the story or some stories that you've had this past year.
Yeah. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about is, how, it's been hard. Okay. So, I'm getting to a place where I have a little bit of better work-home balance, but initially I kind of prioritized the foundation and everyone else above my own needs. And I gained a bunch of weight. I was diagnosed as pre-diabetic. And so now going into 2023, I'm like, we made it through our first year. And now I'm learning to delegate more, to rely more on others, to prioritize, have a better prioritize, because it has been hard, just because it can kind of be really consuming. It can be kind of discouraging, but it also is very rewarding. So there's that. But let me see. So to recap, we were on in the early spring, and in August, we took a trip to Honduras, and we were able to go and meet all of the kids and all of the borrowers, which is this really awesome trip. And one thing that I thought, Scott, that you might appreciate is that, so a little bit of backstory. Sorry, I forgot that I need a little backstory to get here, but
it's okay. Go ahead.
I served my mission in Honduras, and one of my companions, her name is Nellie. And so her husband is the one that runs the nonprofit for us. So there's that backstory. But Nellie, when we were there, my husband is a mental health therapist, and he encouraged Nellie to use journaling as a tool to help her with her mental health. And so when we got back, I was surprised to see that she had written out her entire life story. And it's a really tragic story. It's filled with just unbelievable amount of tragedy. But we are in the process of getting that translated into English, and we're going to have that be an available book. And so that's another project that we're working on. But what's really cool is to see how, when we talk about generational poverty, like the difference that it's going to be for her kids, and breaking the cycle of poverty and changing the way from how she grew up to what her kids are how their life is going to be, right? And so I wanted to mention that because I know that I think you wrote a book. Has it out? I know that I maybe looked at
I submitted it to the publishers, so hopefully soon. Yeah. Okay,
cool. Well, I'm excited to be able to read that, so that'll be awesome. But so Nellie's story is really inspiring to me, and her strength and her faith in the gospel. And so yeah, we're excited. We're kind of working through that. We have I posted about it on social media, and we had several people offering to help with that process. So that was really cool. So since after our trip, we've had 20 loans, and several of them have already been paid off. And we have a 100% payment rate where everybody's making their payments on time. And
So
something that
explain what that is, how that works, and what, right? Just so people understand.
I know. Okay. So our loans range from $165 to we cap them at about $1,300.
Okay.
And so initially they can start with a smaller loan, and if they pay that back, then they can get an additional loan for a higher amount. And we try to structure them in a way that's with the highest likelihood that they're going to pay them off. We're in no way, we're not making money off of the loans. So they're structured for them to be able to be successful. They get 2 months at the beginning so they get the loan, and then they have 2 months before they need to start making payments. And then they have like 10 to 18 months to make those loan payments. So their loan payments are, depending on the loan, like $40 a month. And so, yeah, we have 100% loan payment rate, which is really awesome. And we really try to be accommodating. Like, we have one of our borrowers was pregnant when she got her loan. So when she delivered, we just gave her like a pause on her payments to allow her to have that time to have her baby and stuff like that. So we really want to set them up for success. We're not in the business of, we're not in like the financial business. We're in the business of helping people. So.
Right. And so, and just so you guys know, Emily's at home by herself. Her husband went ice fishing, so you might see her kids run around, but that's okay. We love them. So, how do you decide who gets a loan? Do people apply, or like, do they come out to you with a business idea or some type of a business plan? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, like I mentioned, we have someone on the ground in Honduras that's overseeing this. His name's Armando, and he is the district president over 4 branches in Honduras. And so, and he grew up in this town. So he has a really good sense of the needs, and he's able to kind of identify people who would qualify for loans. And so what he does is he sits down with them and he identifies, do they have a good business plan? Kind of wants to make sure that they've really thought it through, that they have a viable plan, because I don't know if you've taken any of those SelfReliance classes, but they have all of those like really corny videos. Anyway, but he's wanting to make sure that they have a solid business plan that's going to be successful, because his job is to make sure that people are making their loan payments. And so he's making sure, that from the get-go that it's a good business plan. Right.
Okay. So. Is Armando Nelly's husband?
Yes. Yep.
Right. Okay. So, and that's the story you told in your first podcast.
Yeah. Just how, my mission companion, they were kind of in a tight spot. And so we had this idea to give, to employ him as the director of operations in Honduras to oversee everything. And he's amazing. He does, he's about to buy school supplies for 70 kids, which if you've gone school supply shopping, it can be a little bit crazy. And that includes like taking them shoe shopping and all the things. So he's going to be really, really busy in the next few months. But yeah, he does an awesome job.
That's so cool. And just if you haven't watched that podcast episode, it's awesome. So I would recommend you go do that. You can watch that if you go to latterdaylights.com and just search for Emily, and that episode will come right up to the top.
Awesome.
So Clarissa, do you have any thoughts or comments so far?
I think this is so cool. I think Emily's episode was before I came on as a full-time editor on this podcast. And so I actually haven't seen the original episode. So I'm just fascinated to hear all about this. I'm like, no way, she's helping kids in Honduras. This is so cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, you'll have to go back and watch it. That's awesome.
For sure.
I'm trying to look at my notes and see some thoughts that I had that I also wanted to share. So I kind of wanted to just report on some of the borrowers we've had and some of the successes we had. So awesome. One of my favorites is there's a woman who we gave her a loan to make tamales. And being the entrepreneur that she is, instead of just going out and buying pork and making tamales, she went and bought a pig and raised a pig. And then she sold, like butchered it and sold meat in addition to the meat and things that she was going to need to make her tamales. And so then she was making tamales. Anyway, then she, got another pig. And then the last time we checked on her, now she has a cow. I'm like, this is awesome. So that's a really cool one, just to see the progression of how this can help people, like something as simple as starting out with a pig, and now she has a cow, and she's going to be able to help her. She has 4 kids. So that's kind of one of my favorite stories. Another
awesome.
story that I really like is that our very first borrower, his name's Felipe, he just recently had his very last loan payment. And over the holidays, his son went to light, what's it called? They go out and they light their trash on fire in like a burn barrel.
Mm-hmm.
And there was something, some sort of aerosol or something, and the trash exploded, and he was covered in burns. And so because of the better position that he was in, he was able to get his son the care that he needed. And that was huge for me to see that, like a year ago, if that had happened, that might have been a lot harder for his family. And it was also cool to see that there were people who stepped in and they made his last loan payment for him. And they, the kid spent a week in the hospital over Christmas. He was at the hospital over Christmas. And so people sent money for his siblings to be able to have food while the parents were in the hospital with him and stuff like that. So that was just really heartwarming, but also just shows why this is beneficial in terms of being able to help people take care of themselves and meet their own needs and take care of their family and things like that.
Yeah. What was his business?
So he is a welder. And so when he first got his loan, he had the skill set of being able to weld, but he didn't have any materials. And so what he did is he went out and bought steel, and he went out and bought some paint and some stuff to finish up some of his projects. And now we get pictures all the time of he's making chairs and he's making all these things, and he's been able to reinvest in his company and grow his business by having more customers and make new products and stuff. So it's been really successful.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay, so if you guys do you have any other questions, or I'm going to keep going?
No, this is awesome. Yeah, this is great.
Okay. So another one that I really like, and it kind of shows the power of mentoring and Armando's job that he does in mentoring, is Wilmer. And so Armando found out about a nonprofit that offers trainings. And so Wilmer was able to complete a motorcycle repair training, and Armando negotiated with the nonprofit for them to give him a small stipend to meet his family's most basic needs. And then the church was able to pay for his family to have food during his training. And so he was doing this online training, several month-long training. And so now he's fully trained in motorcycle repair, and now he's opening his own shop, which is awesome. And so it kind of shows like working together with other nonprofits and finding resources, and the value of having someone who's, looking for opportunities and willing to negotiate and things like that. So that was really cool, just to see that now he went from unskilled labor to being like a business owner and having a very usable skill set, because in Honduras, there's way more motorcycles than cars, especially in the rural parts. So that'll be really useful for him. So.
Very cool.
Okay, so one of our borrowers I mentioned, she was pregnant, and she has this, her name is Elizabeth, and she has this amazing gifted son. And so when we stopped by their house, we were visiting all the kids and the borrowers, and we said, hey, how's it going? How's he doing in school? She said, he's doing really great in school. I feel really bad because he was offered a position to be in the school marching band, and I can't afford like the fancy hat with the plume and the drum. And so being a band person, I grew up doing band. I was like, that kid has to go to band. Like, we got to make this happen, because I value music. I value music education. I think it's just really valuable. And so we sent, it wasn't a lot, but we sent the money for this kid to be in band. And I included those pictures. So on the picture, Armando had pointed an arrow to, he has a special ribbon signifying that he's like academic success, academic excellence. And so this little boy has really touched my heart, because he you can just see his potential. You can just see that he, is a really gifted kid. And his mom talked about how he is really helpful at home. He comes home, he does his homework without being asked. He's just a good kid, right? Sometimes you're lucky and you get one of those. So anyway, so I just kind of had been thinking about this kid and his potential, and I was wondering, I'm like, I wonder if he has access to be able to read, because to me, reading kind of opens the world, right? To be able to learn about all sorts of things that you might not otherwise know about. So I asked Armando, I said, hey, does he have access to any sort of reading material? And he was like, no, people don't read here. Like, that's not a thing that, we don't have a library, and that's not really something that happens here. Kids don't have books. And so immediately to me, I was like, this has got to be, we got to do something about this. And so I started posting on social media, started asking people for donations for books. We made an Amazon wish list, and we now have like 350 books that Armando has, and we have a goal to get another 150 books. And he's going to be able to loan those out to these kids, and they're going to be able to learn about, we have nonfiction books, we have fiction books, we have books, for entertainment, books just to like learn about the solar system, or, animals that they might never see in their life and things like that. So that's a whole nother project that we've started in the last few months, and something that I'm really passionate about. It's been really fun and really exciting to see. So he hasn't started lending out books yet. We've got to get like all the books and all the organizational system in place for that to start. But I'm really excited to see what comes of that, and for these kids to be able to, for the first time ever, have their own book that they can sit and read about something that they might not have ever known about. So.
Right. Wow. You have been busy.
Yeah.
I love that. I think that's just fantastic that you are very like see a need, feel a need, that like you just hear like the kids don't have books and you don't say, oh, that's sad. You like do something actively to like help. But I just think that's so fascinating.
I know it's hard in the nonprofit world. Like, one of the first advice we got was to just set really clear boundaries of like, this is what we do. And so that as things come up, they call it mission creep. And it's that you just start taking on more and more things, right? Until you do so many things that you can't do anything well. You're just like doing a few things. And so I think we're maxed out. I think with the loans and the kids and the library, I think that's where we stop. I think that's where this stops. So we'll see. But it did feel, for me, it did feel very inspired, where like it all kind of just came together and there weren't any like obstacles to it. And so when those kind of things happen, where it just feels really inspired and things just kind of go smoothly, to me, that just feels right and like something that we should pursue. So. Yeah.
Wow. So I don't know. I don't think I even mentioned this in the first podcast, but you and I are kindred spirits in the sense that we have a need to help people. So because I'm an entrepreneur, back in 2012, 2013, 2014, I actually helped build 2 schools in Kenya.
Oh, that's cool.
And then I went to Kenya and I saw them building the schools. So we built an elementary school, and then we built a high school right next to it. So we, all of these kids, they didn't have a school. They never went to school in this area. And so, I think it was like 500 kids were able to, and that was back then. So I don't know how many kids have gone through it since then. Right. But, so yeah, it was so cool to see all these kids in school and see what we were doing to help them. And then I've also gone to Guatemala and helped with an orphanage. We built some buildings for an orphanage in there, where volunteers could come and live on the property of the orphanage and help.
That's awesome.
And then we went to Guatemala a couple times too, and we got to see all of that. So it's it's almost surreal to go to these like third world countries and see just how little they have,
Right.
and how far just a little bit of help can go. So like with your idea with the library, just a few, even a couple hundred books that can change so many kids' lives. Just something simple as a book that we take for granted here. And I mean, to the point where books almost have no value here, right? They're almost throwaway. And there, a book could mean everything to a kid.
Right. So yeah, just to talk numbers really quick about the poverty in Honduras, just to give people an idea. So 10% of the world population lives in extreme poverty. And extreme poverty is that you're living on less than like $2 a day, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of our borrowers fall into the category of extreme poverty when they started. And so we've been able to see them incrementally increase their income. And so now they're no longer in extreme poverty. Because what happens in extreme poverty is that you're missing meals. They have a lot of stunting where kids, are a lot shorter than they should be and things like that. And so when we're talking about this, it's helpful for me to really remember that we're helping the poorest 10% of kids. And something also kind of fascinating that I did is I looked at, there's a website that you can go on and you can see your income and where you fall in the world wealth, right? And I put in the middle average median, whatever, income for the US. And just by being an average earner in the US, you're in the top 10% of the wealthiest people in the world. And so if the world were a village, there would be a lot of people from lots of different religious backgrounds and lots of different people from all different things. And so when you think about the scale of the world, right, like the global population, and you put that into perspective that we're in the richest top percent, right? And so then to be able to recognize we're in the richest top percent, we could probably do something to help the poorest 10% of people in the world.
That's puts things in a totally different perspective, right? Than we normally think. Because we just get so comfortable with what we have here. We think that everybody has this, and
right.
That's not the case. And most people don't even get to see the other side, because how many people go to third world countries, right?
Yeah.
When I went, one of the trips that I went to Guatemala, I took my kids so that they could see just, how lucky they are to be here. And I was hoping to instill in them a sense of charity and a desire to help other people.
Yeah,
right?
Clarissa, I would love to hear kind of your thoughts about how that experience impacted you as a youth.
Yeah, that was wild. I can't remember how old I was. I might have been like 17, maybe.
Yeah, I
16.
think you were. Yeah.
And I can still remember that trip to Guatemala like it was like last month. It completely changed my life. I didn't realize, how do I word this? Like I had heard that like for if I didn't finish my dinner, like if I was at a friend's house, they would say like, oh, you have to finish because other kids are hungry. I was like, okay, they're not here. Do you want me to mail them my leftovers? Like it just seemed like an incredibly like distant thing to me. Like I would see like advertisements and things with like sad kids. I'm like, oh, that is so sad. But there was like nothing I could do. I was a kid myself, right? But when we went to Guatemala, I didn't like help a ton with building the orphanage, but I did play with the kids, and I don't know Spanish. They didn't care. I can like sound out the words. And I remember this little kid, he came and sat on my lap and he had me read to him this comic book. And he was so patient with me as I like sounded out all of the words, and I had no idea even what I was reading. He would correct me if my pronunciation was really, really bad. And it was just like, it meant so much to me to know that like, even though I didn't have a dime to my name and I didn't have any building skills, I didn't have anything that I thought could help them, even just like I could read to a kid. Like that's something that I'm fully capable of. And
Yeah, that's cool.
it helped me realize that like these people are just as real as I am, and they experience all the highs and the lows. And like, even though we live in different countries, speak different languages, honestly, we're all just kids and we just want to read a comic book. And it was a really sweet, tender experience. I love Guatemala. It's beautiful. And the people there were so happy and sweet. And I was really glad to be able to go.
That's awesome. That's cool. I know we plan to take our kids to Honduras when they're 12, but the condition is that they have to learn Spanish. So as a motive, we're trying to incentivize them to do their Duolingo and to practice. So we'll see if we hold them to that or not. But that's our goal for right now, is take them each one-on-one when they're 12, and that they need to at least be able to communicate a little in case something happened and they something happened. I don't know. I'm like, I need you to at least be able to know, like, I need to find my mom.
Yeah, that would have been really helpful.
So if it's okay, I kind of want to share a few of the kids' stories, maybe to kind of show.
Oh, yeah. That'd be awesome.
So when we started out, the goal was to help the kids of our borrowers. And but that quickly grew, and we didn't want to limit it to the kids of borrowers, because the kids whose parents don't qualify for a loan are the kids who probably need it more than the kids whose parents have a loan. And so to kind of explain that, we have kids, for example, whose parents are have different addictions, okay? And so those addictions prevent them from having a loan, just because it makes the loan too high risk. And so I don't want to say that, people can't change, or that like assume that they wouldn't use the money in the way that it's intended, but you can kind of tell if someone's is clearly using all of their money to buy alcohol every day, that if you're giving them money, it might get used for what it's intended for and it might not. And so that's hard. And so we have kids like that whose parents don't qualify. And so they, their circumstances aren't improving, and their parents can't afford to send them to school. And so we definitely want to help those kids who, even though their parents don't have a loan. And we have a lot of those. We have 2 boys that I'm hoping to get sponsored that their parents abandoned them. They live with their aunt, who is a single mom, and she makes 8 cents a tortilla selling tortillas. And so she's one of our borrowers, and she's been able to expand and sell some more food and things like that. But, on their own, they're not capable of going to school or things like that. And so those are the kids that we really want to help, are the kids who have no resources, who don't have any emotional support or home support and things like that. So one of the mantras that we've had is that we don't want to do harm. And so some nonprofits, you can do unintentional harm. Please. This is my son, Joseph. Can you please go play?
Is he the one that had cancer?
No, that was my older son.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so I don't remember where I was going with this, but basically,
you're talking about doing
you can
harm.
Well, you can unintentionally create dependency, because if you're always providing things for people, then they're not providing things for themselves. And what we really want to do is self-reliance, right? And so we don't want to create any dependency. And so our mantra is, we try not to do things for people that they can do for themselves. And so when you look at a kid, you say, can this kid go to school by himself? Absolutely not. Then that's okay to help him, because you're not doing something for him that he could do for himself that's going to, reduce their self-esteem or cause dependency or anything like that. And so that's a mantra that we've kind of taken on, is that we really want to build self-reliance, and make sure that we're not doing more harm than good in anything that we're doing. So
I love that. Do you have any other stories of kids?
I've got 70 stories.
What about the 2 boys that they lost their arms from the lightning strike?
So there were 2 boys. We mentioned this in the last podcast, and they were actually electrocuted in a mango tree, and they lost.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, they each lost one of their arms, and so They're both on our list. They both will be going to school. And so that's really awesome because when I guess, yeah, so they're both going to go to school. We're really excited to see how that works out. One thing I'm like ding, 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 ding all over the place. But what's been really cool is in the last year, we had a little kindergartner graduate from kindergarten. Like they did the full thing with the ceremony and the diploma and everything. And he wouldn't have gone to kindergarten otherwise. And so that was really cool. And we also had a girl graduate high school. And so this upcoming year, every year we're going to have more and more kids graduating, but we won't really see the effects of this, of the work that we're doing or the impact of it for maybe like 10 years. It's hard to see maybe in the moment, like they went to school this year, that's great. But like in 10 years from now, I think we'll start to see when the kids that are now in high school have graduated and, have their own families and things like that. I think that's when we're going to see the big impact of what we're doing.
Does that scare you?
So there's one boy that I'll mention that he's a twin and he's never been to school ever. He's 14 and his brother, we sent his brother to school last year and he has a single mom and his mom, probably didn't go to very much school and she doesn't value education. And she just tells him, you don't need to go to school. You're not very smart anyway. School's a waste. Like, you don't need to do that. And you're not very smart. And so when we were there in August, I said, I see your brother's in school. Like, do you want to go to school? We can help you go to school. And he was like, no, I'm not very smart. And, I don't know how to read. I don't, cause he's 14. He doesn't know how to read. So for him, going to school would be emotionally challenging too, because if you can imagine being a 14-year-old walking into, I don't know where they would place him in school, but this idea of like, I don't even know how to read. And so I told Armando, I said, I need you to do everything you can to talk this kid into going to school and talk with his mom and do whatever you need to do. But let's get this kid in school. And so then a few weeks later, he sent me a video and he's like, I'm going to go to school. I'm really excited about it. So I'm not sure, in Honduras, they say a lot of kids are behind grade level. And so they don't place you necessarily strictly by age. They place you more by level, if that makes sense. And so I don't know where he'll get placed, but he's 14 and he's learning to read for the first time. So
that is amazing. I mean, even if he goes to school for a year, right? Let's just say if he could learn to read in that year, even if he never goes to school again, just learning how to read is so valuable to somebody that'll change his life forever.
Well, and I've talked to my kids about this. I'm like, how would your life be different if you didn't know how to read? And in some ways, maybe it wouldn't affect your life that much. But like, I think our society is a little bit different, but we have like text messaging and like navigating, being places. Like if you were going to need to know, I don't know. I'm just like, we use reading for everything. So. Oh
yeah, definitely.
So, but we've got lots and lots of kids with lots of stories. So you can follow us on social media and you'll see some of those stories too, as we kind of post them and talk about some of these different kids.
How would they follow you on social media? How would they do that?
Yeah. So our main social media is Instagram and it's just at the Marcovia Project. And so the Marcovia Project is for the area that we're helping in southern Honduras, which is one of the poorest areas of Honduras. It kind of covers a big an area that extends down to the Gulf. And we have some people that are in a subsistence fishing community. And that's probably one of the poorest areas. And we were able to go. We went out with them on their boat. And so that's one of our goals for this upcoming year too, is to find ways to help that area specifically. Something that's really cool about our library is that Armando is going to be able to have a catalog or a digital catalog or of the books, and then kids can request books, and then he's going to get on a bus and he's going to take those books to kids in these really remote places where they don't have TV, they don't have internet. So for them, that's going to be really, really awesome, just because of how remote and isolated they are from the world and things like that. So
Wow.
Dang.
What a guy.
Yeah.
So cool that he's
Armando's
willing to
amazing.
do that.
Yeah.
Very
So,
cool.
and
So,
I guess in the last one we mentioned, that the sponsorship included gifts for the kids at Christmas and their birthdays. And we changed that a little bit because as we approached having 70 kids, the logistics of Armando trying to get 70 kids Christmas presents and have them delivered, I'm like, he's not Santa Claus. Like, he's a superhero, but he's got limitations too. And so we reduced the price a little bit, and also made it just like more affordable. And so that was something that changed from our original podcast that we did, is now that's not something that's included. And we might revisit that in the future and try to find ways that we can maybe still, bring them some Christmas cheer or something. But just from a logistical standpoint, that was going to be really challenging for Armando.
yeah, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
no
So what
kidding.
is the price? What is the price to
So the
sponsor
price
a
is
child?
$120. And so if you're interested in sponsoring a kid, and that kind of seems like a big number, going forward, you can donate $10 a month into our education fund. And then that way, a year from now, you would have put aside $120 to sponsor a kid for next year. So that's another option, but it covers all of their required school supplies and their uniforms. And like some kids need PE clothes and school clothes and so anyway, shoes. It's a lot that it covers, but
Which is amazing that it can cover that much. And
Yeah.
that qualifies them to actually go to school, because they have to have those things in order to even
Right.
get into school, right?
Yeah, and so I think that from my kind of understanding is that they provide all of their own school supplies as well for like their classroom and things. And so there were some kids who maybe could kind of skate by with like not having all of the, like one crayon instead of a box of crayons. I don't know, like, but for the most part, it really prohibited them from being able to go to school if they didn't have the supplies that they needed. So.
Right. Wow. Okay. That's cool that you can break it down into the monthly payment. So is the other thing I liked about your website, because when we did the podcast before, your website wasn't up yet. But what I really like that you guys do is you actually put pictures of the kids on the site. So people can actually see that, hey, these are real kids. This is their name. This is what they like.
Right.
It makes it a lot more personal. And it really feels like that child, or, like you have a relationship
Right.
with them. So I think that's really cool.
So I will say, like, if you do, we try not to put, like, we don't have their last names and we don't have their birthday or their ages and stuff, just for like a little bit of privacy purposes.
Mhm.
But what we do is, like, if you sponsor a kid, we can give you a lot more information about that kid at that point, through email or on social media or whatever. It's just we don't want to put too much information out there that could jeopardize these kids, because they are vulnerable kids already, and so we just don't want to do anything that could possibly jeopardize them. So.
Right.
But we're happy to supply information in terms of, like, what is their home situation like, or different things like that. So.
Is there a way that they can write them or contact them? I don't know.
Yeah, we've talked about that. We haven't really done that, but it's always kind of been on the table as this option to be able to, send a video that we can add subtitles to, or even we have a way to send mail to Honduras and stuff like that. So definitely reach out if you have interest in doing that. This is reminding me, one of the other pictures that I sent you is a picture of some kids in their adobe stick house on some bunk beds. Yeah, the reason I included that picture is because they had 3 kids. So what happened was this boy had a birthday present delivered. And so we had a video of him playing with his birthday present, and he was sitting on this bed. And it was just a platform with no mattress, just a wooden plank twin-sized bed. And so I said, Armando, is that his bed? Because we could probably get him, a mattress. And he said, that's the bed for him and all of his siblings. And so when I brought that up with the person who had sponsored that child, we had a few people chip in and we got them a bunk bed so that they could have, maybe a little bit more space and like nice new mattresses and stuff. And so there's opportunities. Like I've had a few people reach out to say, is there something extra that I can do for my kid? And we're definitely willing to work with you on that, to like accommodate any, like if you wanted to send them a Christmas present, or if you wanted to, do something extra for them, that's definitely an option. I was trying to think of like how to tie in religion to this whole podcast, right? And just and so one of the things was that this week the Come Follow Me lesson really stood out to me. Is it said all things are possible for God. And I was feeling a little overwhelmed, like we've got 20 kids that we need to get sponsored, and feeling a little overwhelmed. But when I can remember that God is aware of me, he's aware of these 20 kids, and nothing is impossible for him. And so that was really helpful this week, just as I'm feeling a little overwhelmed and stressed about, how to make this all happen. And so I just wanted to tie that in. The other thing that I just wanted to mention on the religion note is that I was recently called into the Relief Society presidency, and I had a really good sitting apart, and it was kind of a cool experience because I know that I have a lot to balance. I have my family, and I have, running this nonprofit, and having this church calling, I know is going to bless me because it's going to help me prioritize my time in not only helping people in Honduras, but helping people within my town. And so, focusing on, there's people in Honduras who have needs, and there's people within my home that have needs, and there's people within my community and within my ward that have needs. And so sometimes, it's easy to lose sight of that. So I think that's going to really help me going into this year, being able to have other areas to focus my life and to be able to serve in different ways. So I'm excited for that.
That's awesome. So that kind of segues into some of the thoughts that I wanted to hit on was, so you're talking about, 10 years into the future. Does that scare you, or does that excite you? Knowing that how this first year went? Right. So it's interesting. So only 30% of nonprofits make it into the 10-year mark or beyond. And a lot of nonprofits fail within the first few years. And so this first year was hard, but we're really committed to this idea because I don't think I couldn't turn my back on all these kids. You know what I mean? And so going forward, I did have this thought at the beginning. You kind of introduced me as like this one woman is helping in Honduras, right? And that's not totally accurate, because I have an amazing board, and they're all really helpful. And we also have amazing donors. And so it's not me personally, like I'm not the one doing everything. And it wouldn't be possible without our donors. And so I love that all the people who have joined in and rallied around this cause, and who are really excited and motivated to like carry this forward. And so we feel really committed to this project in the long term. Like I mentioned, mission creep, where you can just start to get really overwhelmed and trying to take on too many things. I really think we are going to limit ourselves to, we do small business loans, we help kids get to school, and we have this library. And in the big scheme of things, like in our ideal world, there wouldn't be any kids to sponsor, because their parents would have gotten themselves in a position to take care of them. That's the real goal, is to have the parents take some ownership and get themselves in a financial situation to be able to provide for their kids. And so when people talk about like, oh, are you going to try to every year like double the number of kids you're helping? It's like, no, we want to reduce the number of kids that we're helping, because that shows that we're being successful. Like if we have less kids that need help, that means that their parents are doing better, And so I don't have any ambitious goals of like, we're going to help 1,000 kids or anything like that. Like my
my thought really is that we want to focus on helping the parents to be able to, that they can take care of their kids. So
Cool. Well, it sounds like you're really trying to solidify what your organization is and who you really want to help and how you can offer the most help with the time and resources you have available. So that's good.
just to kind of go back to this idea of the borrowers that we have. So we had the option to give lots of small loans to lots of people and continue to do that and add new people, and everybody gets these small loans. But what we decided is that instead of helping a lot of people a little bit, we would be better served to help a few people a lot. And so that's why instead of offering loans to new people in this coming year, which we'll have a few of those, we're renewing loans and allowing people to continue to grow their businesses. And so in that way, you're going to see, rather than like, well, you're no longer in extreme poverty, so now we're not going to help you. Well, instead of that, we're saying you're no longer in extreme poverty, but you're still in poverty. Like, let's help you, continue to grow your business and stuff like that. So we're going to be working hard, focusing hard on the families that we do have and helping them really succeed in this year and in the coming years.
I think that's a good idea. Just because it, getting through that first, getting that first loan paid back. I mean, that's an accomplishment for those people, but that doesn't necessarily mean that now they're home free, right? But it does show that they're trustworthy, right? And that you can trust that they're gonna pay you back again, right? So I think that's a really cool strategy, really to help lift them, not just this much, but really get them to a point where they can start lifting people around them.
Yeah, exactly.
And
so each time they pay off a loan, then they qualify for a bigger loan. And the interesting thing is, like, they don't necessarily always even need a bigger loan. Like, we just had a lady renew her loan for the same amount. And it's like, it wouldn't necessarily even be beneficial to give her a bigger loan. She got a loan. She's going to get a refrigerator because she has a food selling business. And so that's just what we need. So we're not giving people like loans in excess of what they need or anything like that. We're just like, if this is all you need, like, we're going to just give you, the amount that you need. And if that's all you need, then that's great. So anyway, but they do have the option to like double their loan each time. And then they are capped at $1,300.
Awesome. Okay, Clarissa, did you have a comment?
I do. I didn't realize, I didn't put the pieces together that, I feel like the spiritual concept that we've been talking about this whole time has been balance. How you are trying to balance your own life and your mental health and your physical health and your family's health, as well as having this Christ-like reach out to other people and helping them learn how to balance their life. Because we've talked a lot about self-reliance, and I love the self-reliance program that the church has put out. It's helped me tremendously. But I just think that's fascinating that even as you're trying to do all these good things, you also have to take a step back and worry about the little things in your life too. And I had never put it together that that is a Christ-like trait. That's so cool that you're working on this. And that's something that I think I need to build a little bit more in my life too. So thank you.
So I think it's easy to fall into the comparison trap too of someone watching this might think well, I'm not running a nonprofit. And it's well, that's not what God needs you to be doing, right? But also recognizing that doesn't make me they're not seeing where I'm failing, maybe. You know what I mean? So sometimes we see things and we think oh, that person's doing this and this and this, and we don't see maybe where they're falling short in other areas too. So
I think though, even with falling short, the fact that you're aware and there's an effort, I think that's what matters the most, because we're never going to be perfectly balanced, and we're never going to have everything, all our ducks in a row, and we're not going to just never let anyone down. But I'm just saying that I see your effort, and I think that's wonderful because effort is so hard.
I guess one thing too I want to mention, so I'm hoping people will watch this that are inside our faith, outside of our faith, right? And something that kind of comes up with members outside of our faith and what we're doing is like, are you helping people only in your faith, or, you know, like they kind of want to know more about what that looks like. And so from the very beginning, one thing is, if you ever fly to Honduras, doesn't matter when, there will be at the airport huge mission trips. Always. There's always, you know, people going to Honduras for these mission trips, because Honduras relies on lots of churches and organizations that go down and they do all these missions and stuff like that. And so, but in my research of other nonprofits in Honduras, most of them are Christian and most of them are affiliated with a church, and they the help that they give is dependent on the person's religious affiliation. And so I saw one church, and they do kind of like a little microloan, kind of what we're doing, but it's like, this guy got baptized and now we're going to help him out. Like, and I take issue with that, because my thought is, if you're in a church, you have some social equity. If you're outside of a church and you don't have anything, you're the person who needs the most help, because the people in the church have, you know, at least a few resources. And so we really, like, in terms of the kids that we're helping and stuff, where it's not just members of our faith, we're trying to expand to, like, you know, we have kids who are not of our faith, because those are the kids who are in need, who don't have a church community, who don't have, you know, the hope that you can have from the gospel and things like that. And so that's an important thing for anyone watching who might be wondering, kind of like, well, do you only help people with your church and things like that? So
yeah, that's cool. I like that, because I mean, a person is a person, right? And
yeah.
Everyone needs help. So
Definitely.
cool.
I don't think I have whoops, let me turn. I'm having a hard time hearing, but I don't think I have anything other to share, other than, like I said, like, we have 70 kids and they all have a story, and our borrowers all have a story. And but I hope that you can follow along with us on social media. That's a great way to hear some more of those stories. And
so I have one more question. Tell me about your friend and her husband. Like, how has this changed their life in the past year? Because I know he was on the verge, just people that haven't seen the podcast, he was on the verge of actually coming to America illegally, just because his family was starving, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So let me see. So he grew up in Honduras, and he was working in a sugarcane factory, and it's just a really low paying job. And he was working hard, putting in the hours, but he was called to be the branch president, and it was the hours that were required for the sugarcane factory just weren't compatible with his responsibilities as a branch president. And so him and his wife, they took a leap of faith, and they said, you know what, we're going to prioritize that he has this church assignment, and we're going to put faith that he's going to be able to provide for our family in another capacity. And so he started doing like electrical work and stuff like that. And then he, tore his rotator cuff. And so he couldn't do electrical work. And then COVID happened, and they were just, you know, in this really tight spot. And so it was funny because, you know, you talk to him, this is really kind of a cool job that he has, because he gets to get paid to go around and, like, feel good about what he's doing. You know what I mean? Like you go to some jobs, you go to work, and maybe it's not as rewarding or gratifying. I don't know. Depends on your job, right? But for him, he gets to have a job that he really enjoys doing. Like, and he gets to, you know, go visit all these people and help them. And he said, and he always tells us, he's like, the pictures just don't do it justice. He's like, I know that you guys, you know, I send you the pictures and stuff. He's like, but that doesn't do it justice to when I get to go and sit down with someone and say, hey, are you interested in a small business loan? Like, I want to help you out. And their reaction, or, you know, hey, I'm going to buy your school supplies so that you get to go to school and you've never been before. Like, he's like, you know, the pictures just don't do it justice for him being able to be in that position and to share that with people. So he loves his job, and he does an amazing job at it. So.
And is their family okay?
Yeah, they're doing really great. So they don't have any food insecurity. They meet, you know, they're definitely meeting all of their needs and everything like that. And so, and something that's kind of a reflection of like your socioeconomic status, I guess, in Honduras, is like being able to go out to eat or go to the movie or take your family like on a little go see a neighboring town or something like that, right? And so that's kind of where they're at now, is that they have enough to meet their needs and they can help others, but they can also like they could go out and have a meal if they wanted to do that and things like that. And so that's really cool to see that, they're in a position, definitely in a really good financial position. So
do you have any last thoughts, Emily?
Last thoughts.
Before we end things?
I'm just trying to see if I had any other thoughts.
Okay.
I think that covers everything that I had on my list.
Okay.
Did you have any last questions for me, Clarissa? Is there anything you kind of needed to understand better? I know for me, like I live, eat, dream, breathe this stuff. And so I kind of forget that people don't know all what's in my head. We have a Google Doc with like 75 tabs, and there's just a lot that goes into it. But I know all of these things. And so I forget that other people maybe don't fully understand what exactly it is, or, they might need some clarification.
No, I think this is fascinating. And even if I did have questions, like you provided lots and lots of information about like where I can learn more and like how I can get involved. And so I'm just fascinated. I'm excited to see where this goes.
Awesome. I'm excited for you guys. I saw you posted that you have like lots of viewers. I don't remember where I saw it, on Facebook or something, that
it's continuing to grow. Yeah. It's,
that's awesome.
It's been awesome just to see, it kind of take off, and, we're really excited, and we're glad that we can have people like you on the show and
yeah, it's awesome. Thank you
to really bring
me.
light. Like, one thing I love about your story, Emily, is it's such a positive, story, right? We have a lot of people that have, tragedies happen to them and how they overcome them. And that is amazing. And you can definitely see God's hand in it, but it's also just really heartwarming to see that there's people like you out there that are going out of their way to bring light into the world and to lift people up. And I don't know, I just relate with that personally, just because of my experiences I've had in my life. But I think other people do too. And so hopefully, this touches some people's hearts and they want to become a part of it and help out. So
yeah, I think there's opportunities, to either become a part of this, or if you feel compelled and you have some idea, like reach out to me, because I can give you some just advice about navigating that whole process of like starting a nonprofit, if that's something that you feel compelled to do. There's definitely like a steep learning curve, but now our first year, and I'm like, oh, this is, I can do this. The first year is a lot, but it gets easier. And like, if you feel inclined to do something, don't hesitate. Don't be a stranger to reach out to me, and I'm happy to help.
That's awesome. So if they want to learn more, can you just kind of give them places to go?
Yep. Yeah. So our website is themarcoviaproject.org, not .com. And our Instagram handle is also the Marcovia Project. And that's where we post, most of the updates and things like that. But our website has opportunities to sponsor a kid. And like Scott said, you can go in and you can select a kid. And this is a really fun activity that I would encourage you to do with your own kids, is to go in and look at the kids and say, have your kids identify, like, what kid appeals to them. Because we have boys, we have girls, we have teenagers, we have 5-year-olds. So there's kind of something in there for everybody that might appeal to everyone. And you can also, our library fund is another opportunity. And so we have a link tree on our Instagram, and that's somewhere where you could go in and you can either just make a donation, you can sponsor a kid, you can sponsor a small business loan, or you can donate to our library fund. And we also have a wish list of Spanish books.
Awesome. Well, Emily, I'm so excited to see where this goes. I'm sure we're going to have you on the show again, because this is just so fun just to see how the story unfolds. I love that part of it. And I love that you shared some of the actual stories of people and how it changed their lives. So thank you again for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, and thank you all our listeners for tuning in today and to hearing Emily's story. Please, if you have a few seconds, go and hit that share button. Let's get this story out there. Let's share some light into the world. And if you know somebody that has a story that you think would be great on the show, go to latterdaylights.com and submit that story, and let's get them on the show. Once again, thanks, Emily, and thanks, Clarissa, for hanging out with us and being my co-host today. And we will talk to you guys next week. See you then.
Take care. Bye.
Yo donde sea grande yo quiero ser coronel,
Técnico en refrigeración.
profesor, policía, estilista,
Doctora o irme a la marina.
abogado, militar,
Militar.
militar, licenciado,
Mecánico.
doctora, abogada, bombero,
Abogado.
mecánico automotriz. Yo quiero ser ingeniero industrial, mecánico,
Voy a ser mecánico automotriz.
Abogado. Policía.
abogada, doctora, una doctora, policía, bombero, doctora, policía,
Licenciada.
enfermera, veterinaria,
Bueno, yo quiero ir a la militar con esa.
doctor para salvar muchas vidas, policía. Yo quiero ser doctora, abogado, policía,
¿Y tú?
policía,
Policía.
Policía.
Soy llantero.
ser comerciante, abogado, policía, policía, profesora,
Militar. Yo futbolista.
Futbolista.
Policía.
ingeniero, doctora,
Abogada.